Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman, and today got a real treat for you. Her name is Abby Balf, and she is the Wastewater Treatment Plant Operator for Sanitary District Number 5 of Marin County. Abby, say what's up to everybody.
What's up? What's up, guys?
All right, so Wastewater Treatment Plant Operator, Marin County Sanitary District Number 5. So where's District Number 4 at, and where's 3? Is that a thing?
Yeah, so multiple districts within Marin County.
Gotcha.
All of them have chosen different names except for us.
Okay.
So
Well,
they
hey,
mainly have gone with the towns, the cities that they're in. We just for some reason have kept ours, but we are based in Tiburon, which is in
gotcha.
Marin County. Yeah.
Gotcha. Beautiful area there. All right, so let's talk about what a wastewater treatment plant operator is and what they do. So explain what the position is and what you do, I guess, for the community.
Yeah, definitely. So top priority is we're keeping the community safe. We're keeping them healthy. We're essentially removing anything that could be dangerous to your health and cleaning it, removing it, right? And keeping it away from everyone. If you think back into the Roman times, they actually did have sewer systems, which are actually pretty impressive. However, all the poor people, quote unquote, had access to that without knowing it. So that's how disease like cholera and whatnot spread, giardia. Yeah. It's interesting, but we're essentially making sure that that doesn't happen. So you think about it, when you flush a toilet, when anything goes down your sink, down the shower, most people don't know where that ends up. Well, that goes into pipes under your house, into the street, goes into the collection system, and then goes to our plant where we receive all of that. We call that influent, and then we treat it. It depends what type of plant it is that's receiving that influent, how they're going to treat it. But at my plant specifically, we are what we call an activated sludge plant. So we do both biological and chemical treatment in order to get the water looking a little more normal, if you will. And then we discharge it.
Gotcha. Okay, so talk us through what your position, like what's a normal Tuesday like for Abby? Like when as soon as you get to the work, what are you doing? What's on your schedule for the day? Like, after lunch, what are you doing? Then before you leave, what you got going on?
Yeah. So on my team, we have, I'm going to say like 4.5 operators. I'm going to count my superintendent as a half an operator because he's got other duties he's got to do too. But essentially, we'll come in and we'll figure out, who's going to be doing what that day. Sometimes it depends whether we're getting like a chemical delivery or something like that. But the main gist is we come in, we do our temperature logs. So we check our temperatures on our refrigerators, on our refrigerated samplers, things like that. We'll then do what we call AM rounds, which is basically going around the plant, checking numbers on a whole bunch of different items, making sure everything looks up to par, how it should, and basically just doing a quick span of everything. From there, we'll usually do our daily labs. I try to do this 2 to 3 times a week where I do process labs. So it's even deeper laboratory stuff that's strictly in-house for us. And then from there, it's any projects we have going on, any cleaning that we feel like we need to do, prepping for wet weather season, because that's a little bit of an issue for us. And then there, it's basically closing. So what we're doing on a daily basis every day is just making sure everything is running smoothly and seeing if we need to make any changes to make it run a little more smoothly.
Sure. So every superhero has an origin story. They grew up doing something and something triggered them to get better, and they got better, and then they started defending the world of the evil villains. So let's talk about Abby's origin story. Like, was young Abby into sanitary or working with wastewater? Were you playing with turds in the toilet at 5 years old, like making sure they went where they're supposed to go? So tell us like what your trajectory was like high school, college, and what got you into this industry.
So I don't think I was playing with turds when I was younger. When I was really young, I was told that it was pink, red dresses only. That's all I would wear. And then getting into elementary school is when the tomboy kind of came out a little bit. Um, but nonetheless, coming out of high school, I was set on going to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I was going to be studying agricultural business, hoping to minor in wine and viticulture because I was hoping to get into the wine industry. Growing up in Sonoma County, surrounded by wine all the time, I was like, this is going to be perfect. When I got to Cal Poly, they actually got rid of the wine and viticulture minor because it was so impacted. They just didn't have the staff to cover everyone who wanted a piece of that. So that was out of the cards for me, unfortunately. And then upon graduation, I didn't really have a specific plan in place as to what I wanted to do. So I took a job in San Francisco and started my sales career in the tech world. So got into that. I figured that would be a good place to start, build up my confidence, kind of learn how to speak to people like we're doing now, and go from there. But once I got in, I felt stuck. I didn't really still have an idea as to where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. And then ultimately, I didn't want to lose my independence. I was getting paid pretty nicely, and didn't want to, start at the bottom elsewhere and ultimately maybe have to move back in with the parents. That was just something I didn't want to do. But after being in the industry for about 5 years, our good old friend COVID came around, and I was part of about a 35% layoff of my company. Ironically, on April Fool's Day 2020, which was also my 1-year anniversary with the company. So that was a little heartbreaking. But after, I would say, a month or so of trying to figure stuff out, moved back in with the parents, sending out, I don't even know how many applications and interviews I was doing, but to no avail, no job out of it. So that's when I was like, okay, we really need to sit down, take a breath, and restart. We need to find something different, something that I'm actually passionate about and I actually like doing, because I hated my career in sales. I wasn't that great at it. And I was like, I can't live my life in this forever. It's not going to happen. So I started interviewing neighbors, friends of friends, just whoever I could get my hands on, to figure out what they were doing, and how they got there, because I was starting fresh from the bottom. So I wanted to figure out how I could do the same thing. And after multiple of those interviews, I landed on 2 options, either wastewater or agricultural appraisal. Now, the reason why I stuck to go with wastewater is because of a few things. One, I've always been pretty good at math, and we do a lot of math every single day. Science has always been pretty intriguing for me, so I liked the idea that I would be looking under a microscope every once in a while and doing some lab work. 3, I liked the idea of being inside outside. So my sales career, I was stuck behind a computer all day, every day. And so with wastewater, I was told you're going to be doing a little bit of computer work, maybe some research, but you're also going to be doing labs. You're going to be going out and about. You're going to be doing this and that. So being inside, outside was really appealing to me. And then lastly, I wanted a career that I called was going to be pandemic proof. So that way I wouldn't be affected the same way again in a new career should something like COVID come back again. And unfortunately, I've seen quite a few of my former colleagues on LinkedIn. They're going through probably like their 3rd or 4th round of layoffs right now, in the tech industry again. So I definitely made the right move.
Gosh, Abby, I mean, you said you weren't good at sales, but that was probably one of the best pitches I've heard for getting somebody in the industry. Because think about what you just said, like it's recession proof, right?
Mhm.
It's it's one of those things where you're not stuck behind a desk because what millennial or Gen Zer wants to be stuck behind a desk? And then like you get to do what you want to do and matter. Like how many sales calls have you been on where you're like, dude, like if I sell it to you or not, like world's not gonna change. Who cares?
Right.
So like I appreciate you going into detail on that because it's true. Like there's so many of our counterparts out there that are like, what? Like all they know is tech, or tech sales, and it's like, dude, there's other stuff out there in the world that you can make good money and make a good name for yourself and have a good career in it. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Let's say you're mentoring somebody, like, and I love how you went on educate or informational interviews to figure out like what else is out there besides the job you're in. Um, what if somebody was interviewing you on like, hey, Abby, what skill set should I pick up to be successful at being a wastewater treatment plant operator? What skill set would you tell them?
I would say two things, curiosity and confidence. You need to be curious enough to go out and ask questions and maybe take a class here and there. It's still a goal of mine to take one class every semester just to keep things fresh and going. But just be able to call up a plant and be like, hey, I'm curious about what you guys do. Can I get a tour, next weekend or whatever day it is? Just be curious and ask questions. That is huge. Or ask why. If you don't understand something, well, why or how does that work? Super important. And then the confidence piece kind of ties into that. You kind of have to be confident enough to ask questions and, know that there aren't any stupid questions in the world because there really truly aren't, especially when you get into a complex career as such. But also have the confidence to basically represent yourself. Being a female coming into the industry, that's a newer thing. I have met quite a few female younger operators such as myself that are just getting into the field, and it's a new thing. I mean, this has been basically the good old boys club for a long time, so I'm kind of breaking the barriers. So you got to be confident enough to be able to hold yourself high and just know, hey, I can do this. So that's kind of the two that I
Sure,
have.
sure, sure. Thanks for that. Story time. I need a story from Abby of when something went wrong under your watch, what you did to fix it, and then what lessons you learned from it to apply to your future career.
Yeah. Something that went wrong under my watch. So I am a newly certified operator, so I am still under training myself, and I am also training our operators in trainings, our OITs, as well. So there hasn't been really anything in particular that's gone super wrong under my watch. There was one thing. So I actually was out on vacation a couple weeks ago and came back and got told a story about something that happened. So one of our OITs were hosing down one of our clarifiers, just making sure all the algae is off and whatnot. And I guess the hose had rubbed up against one of our light poles, and there was a cover over the bottom of the light pole. And I guess that cover came off and went into the clarifier. So they had to do an emergency transfer. So we have two trains in our plant, and so we keep one empty for items as such. And so they rather, I wasn't there, moved that over in an emergency transfer to go find that cover so that way it wouldn't get stuck in the sump, because then we would have had some pretty big problems if that happened. They found it, good to go. I think they left it in the other tank for a couple days and came to find out that they had left a valve open. So we were returning quite a bit of sludge back to the headworks, which created a huge foaming problem. So there's nothing that you can do immediately for that. It's one of those things where you have to realize what's going on, how to mitigate the problem and how to fix it moving forward. And then you kind of just have to let the plant do its own healing. It's kind of like the human body, like when you get sick, you're not going to take some medicine and boom, you're all good to go. It might take a couple days to settle down. So I saw some pictures of the foaming in our aeration basin, and it was pretty high. So that was
Wow.
something that went wrong when I was not on site. But there's been little things I've witnessed, just nothing that big.
Got- Gotcha. Keyword when you were on vacation.
Exactly.
All right. So you said you're still, I guess, new to it, relatively new. Yeah, I'm sure you're learning a lot on the job, but what does Abby do to learn? I guess to speed up that process. Like, what's your personal and professional development regimen like to learn more about what you do in the space that you're in?
Yeah. So as I mentioned previously, I am, or it's a goal of mine rather, to take at least one class a semester. So this past semester, I actually took two classes because they were shortened. So they were like, half the semester rather than the full. So I took an environmental laws and regulations class, and then I took a utility management class. I'm still trying to find an online chemistry class for next semester. I really want to have an at-home lab kit and also not pay $1,500 to take it via university extension. So still searching. But essentially these are just to keep me in industry learning. Also kind of helping get me ready for some future certification exams. So my next exam that I want to take is the CWEA lab certification exam. So trying to get some more stuff under my belt for that area. So that way, hopefully, I can take over as lab director in the next couple of years. Um,
Love it.
on top on top of that, I'm also volunteering with CWEA, so that way I can meet new people, see what they're doing in industry, because there are so many jobs within the water wastewater world. You can do a lot. So I just love to learn from people. So that's kind of a couple things I'm trying to do.
Sure, sure. I love it. And that's how we met is through CWEA. And I'll say, like, the way I learn the best is like usually talking to people who are a lot smarter than me. So when I get in these associations like CWA, it's always fun to just talk to people because you learn so much in like one or two conversations. I love it. So let's say we ask your grandma or your aunt, uncle, somebody, and I asked them, I said, what does Abby do all day, every day? Like, what would they get totally wrong in answering that? Like, what's the biggest misconception about a wastewater treatment plant operator?
Um, I don't think a lot of people know what that even means. Usually, well, it's funny. I went to a friendsgiving earlier in November, and the last time I had seen a lot of people who were in attendance, it was at my girlfriend's wedding back in 2019. So they haven't seen me in a few years, vice versa. So I kind of played a little bit of a game with them and said, "Hey, Bob, literally his name's Bob. Um, hey, haven't seen you in a long time. You'll never guess what I'm doing now, career wise." And I got, thrown a couple other things. Stripper was one of them. That's not it either. But when I said wastewater operator, the look on his face was just like, no, there's no way. So I started explaining to him what we did, and the look on his face is just jaw on the floor, eyes wide open, just couldn't believe it. So I think a lot of times when you try to explain to people who don't understand that at all, or not blue collar oriented, um, you explain kind of what you do, and they're like, wait, so you touch poop all day? And I'm like, well, not all day. And it's really like when you walk into a wastewater plant, it's not like you see, turds floating on the surface. It's brown water, sure, but it's really not as gross as people make it out to be, or at least it doesn't gross me out. So I think a lot of people, when they just hear wastewater and you explain what wastewater is, all they can think about is what goes down the toilet, and they just, you know, get grossed out.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing I wanted to talk about. So you work in Tiburon. When I used to live in the Bay Area, I worked in Marin County also, and Belvedere, Tiburon, Mill Valley. Those are nice, like high end areas, like probably some of the highest zip codes in the country. And I was just a cable install guy at the time, and sometimes you get looked at a little funny because you're a blue collar guy, and like, and it doesn't, it's a different atmosphere. So, working in Tiburon, have you felt the kind of not pushback, but have you been stereotyped in a certain way because you're a wastewater treatment operator, like about town, or is that something that they respect what you guys do?
I don't know if they know what I do again. So we have quote unquote a uniform we have to wear, right? So we wear navy blue tops and then khaki or tan pants. And that's kind of our uniform, give and take with that. So sometimes, it'll be lunch and we'll want to go grab lunch somewhere or go grab a coffee or, whatever it is. And so we'll walk out into public and you'll get some stares because it is a very expensive area. So not a lot of people work blue collar jobs that live down there. So especially me being a female walking around in dirty pants and stuff like that, they're kind of, I'll get a double take every once in a while. They'll be a little confused as to why I'm there. But I don't think that we really have a stereotype, if you will, and or are respected. I think when people start to find out a little bit more about what we do and what we do for them as a community, I think they do respect it. It's just that public education, that outreach that we're definitely starting to work on a little bit more now.
Sure, sure. And speaking of public outreach, I always ask the question, let's say Abby is commissioned to put up a billboard, and this billboard is going to be in the most trafficked area of Tiburon. What ask of your community in regards to wastewater would you put on this billboard?
Ooh, that's a good one. This is a little elementary, but I think it is something that sticks. Um, I would want to put something along the along the lines of you can only flush the 4 P's: paper, poop, pee, and puke. Basically, anything that comes out of the human body and toilet paper are the only things that should go down the toilet.
Okay, the 4 P's.
It sticks though, right? You can remember it.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I like that. All right, let's say I'm coming to town and I text you ahead of time and I say, "Hey, Abby, where can I get the best burger in Tiburon?" Where would you send me?
Not Tiburon.
Okay.
I would send you one of the better places that I like and has 2 locations that I know of. One is in St. Helena, but that's Napa County, so that's a ways away. The other one is in Greenbrae, and it's called Gott's Roadside. Gott's Roadside's pretty good. And then if you're coming up to Petaluma, up where I'm at, there is Acme Burger, which is another good one. That's also in Katati. So yeah.
Yeah, been there, been to Acme Burger. Love it. All right, so where do you see the future of wastewater treatment going? I'm sure when you're out and about working, you're thinking and you're like, what problems is a wastewater treatment plant going to solve in 50 to 100 years? Like, what will the Abbey 50 years from now be solving at a wastewater treatment plant?
If we could solve the drought in California, like let's do it.
Yeah,
That's gonna take a lot of money, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of time. Um, I don't think that's gonna happen for a very, very long time. But thinking about it, so most of the Bay Area treatment plants discharge to the bay. So I forget where I found this, but there was an interactive map of the Bay Area and all the treatment plants, and it showed you how much each treatment plant is discharging on a daily basis. So for us at SD5, we discharge about 500,000 gallons a day. That's our average. So we're small. We're really tiny compared to the rest
and
of the
that's small.
plants. Very, very small. Because San Jose does about, I think it was 80 to 90 million gallons a day. So that's free water that they're just putting into the salty bay. And the question we actually get a lot at Tiburon at SD5 is, well, why can't we recycle the water and use it for landscaping? We have a lot of I&I, so infiltration problems. So we get a lot of salt in our influent. So we cannot remove that salt without reverse osmosis which is really costly. We'd have to have a whole separate plant in order to do that, and it's just not worth it for us right here. So for us to do that, recycle the water, that's such a great idea. We just can't do it. But other places such as San Jose probably could, right? They could use that water to do landscaping, golf courses, fountains, in their little shopping squares, things like that. Or if they wanted to turn it into potable water, they totally could. There are obviously extra treatment and filtration processes that they need to do in order to take it from wastewater effluent to drinkable water. But it's something that's totally applicable, and we're just not doing it. And again, it comes down to money, time, land. So that's something I would love to see start happening sometime soon, because obviously the California environment is just not going back to the early 2000s when we were having tons and tons of rain. So that's something that could help the drought problem. We're just not there yet, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Okay. Well, I always like to offer a space on the show for you to thank mentors that you had along your journey, and then also to offer a word of inspiration and motivation to other wastewater treatment plant operators.
Yeah. So I'll thank three people here. So one, his name is Anthony Scary. He is a treatment operator in Petaluma. So his mom actually lives a few doors down from my mom. So that's how I got connected with him, and that's how I got started on my journey. So he definitely was the turning factor for me. He was the one that made me go, all right, this is going to be my path. So always have to thank him for that, because without him, I wouldn't be where I am today for sure. The second person is going to be my first wastewater boss. His name is Phil Spooner. So he's up in Lake County. So he's the one who gave me a shot and opened up the door for me within the industry. So I always have to thank him for that. And I still keep in touch with him every once in a while, because sweet, sweet man. And then the third person would be my current boss, Casey Cottrell. So he definitely gave me another shot too, down here in Tiburon. And he and I have a really great working relationship, and always trying to push each other to be better. So it's just, the people who I feel like, kind of open those doors for me and give me a hand on things. It's like, that's the one thing about this industry I love, is everyone wants everyone else to succeed. There's not that competition where it is in sales, where you're always trying to beat everyone. It's like, no, we're always trying to help each other out, because we always want to get to that next level together.
Yeah. Yeah. You're probably the first interviewee that I've had that went from sales into sanitary.
It's unique. It's definitely unique. And a lot of people, like I said, still today, they're like, what? But I love it. I honestly couldn't see my life any other way.
Cool. And I can tell your energy and your passion behind it is, you probably seen this out there. A lot of people fall into this career. They didn't have anything else to do. Their uncle worked for the city, so they just started working for the city. But I can tell, like, you sought it out. You weighed other options. You said, you know what, I'm going to go this route because this is what I want to do. And you already have a plan to rise up the ranks and take over the world and fix the drought. So
yeah, well, I worked my butt off to get here, because I wanted to not only get in the industry, but get in at full steam ahead. So
totally.
I'm still doing that, and we're just not going to stop, because eventually I'm going to be on top. Eventually. Sure.
Love
it's just going to take some time.
Love it. Well, Abby, thank you for hopping on the show. To all the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Share it with somebody who might be in the, they're making 90 phone calls a day for some tech startup and they just want out. So send them Abby's story, and I'm sure they'll join SD number 5 in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to be plugging this everywhere.
And Abby, any final words before we get out of here?
Hey, anything you guys want to do in life, you totally can. It might take a little bit of discovery, but like I said, just ask questions and you'll get there.
Love it. Love it. Well, Abby, once again, thanks for hopping on. This has been the Public Works Podcast, and thanks for tuning in.